Sunak U-turns on tax cuts. Rishi Sunak attacked Liz Truss for her tax-cutting plans. His line of attack was that tax cuts are morally wrong because we shouldn't be passing our debts on to the coming generation. He obviously means that we should be paying down the debts from the pandemic as quickly as possible because, as he says, this is the Conservative way of doing things. Now, the problem with this approach is that the debt that Sunak is talking about is £450 billion, which was raised under the Quantitative Easing Programme conducted by the Bank of England during the pandemic. Now, it may be news to some, but the Bank of England doesn't just start printing billions of quid on a whim. They don't get up one day and say, let's start printing shitloads of cash because they're short of something to do. The process has to be approved by the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and he or she, in this case Rishi Sunak, has to sign a Deed of Indemnity, which guarantees that the bank will be paid all the money it is owed. The taxpayers of the United Kingdom are therefore on the hook for billions of pounds of debt. The money created by quantitative easing, or QE, it's a lot simpler to say that, attracts interest at the base rate set by the Bank of England. When Rishi Sunak agreed to borrow QE money, the rate of interest was 0.1%. Today, due to inflation, the Bank of England has increased the base rate to 1.25%, or 12.5 times the original rate Sunak borrowed at. On the 4th of August, the Bank of England will review the base rates, and it is very likely that interest rates will rise again to 1.75% or even higher. After all, we are expecting a 60% increase in domestic energy costs from October due to the calculation for the energy price cap being set by the wholesale price of electricity and gas. So, it is very unlikely that the £450 billion will be paid down anytime soon because the interest on the national debt in 2022-2023 is forecast to be around £104 billion. And that is a conservative, with a small c, estimate. Sunak knows exactly what the problem is because he borrowed £23 billion in June to pay £19 billion of debt interest, and that is a record for a single month. His attacks on Liz Truss have been made simply to undermine her economic credibility. He states clearly that borrowing is inflationary, yet he borrows vast sums to pay down debt interest, and he recently borrowed £10 billion to bail out the energy companies this winter, even though they will be raising the energy cap to at least £3,244, a rise of 60%. The fact is that after more than a decade of austerity, the public will not accept more cuts, and the economy cannot bear further cuts. Any stimulus from tax cuts can only help in our current unenviable position. This is why Sunak has now made a small concession and released a press statement saying he will cut the VAT on energy bills for a 12-month period. This is strange to say the least, as he vehemently opposed a similar suggestion by Boris Johnson, which was made quite recently in fact. Sunak is polling 40% to Liz Truss's 60% with Conservative Party members, so he's trying to make himself popular. Obviously, he has no chance. His shouty mansplaining to a woman, Liz Truss, in the BBC Live TV debate did not gain him any supporters, and he is now desperate to please anyone who will listen to him. He had little credibility going into this leadership contest, and his latest U-turn won't help. On the subject of U-turns, it is worth noting that Sunak U-turned on his national insurance contributions rise. His raise in the payment threshold wasn't in the original spring statement, nor for that matter was the £400 for every household taxpayer bailout to the energy companies. Originally, he stated that every household would get a £200 discount off their energy bills, which would be clawed back at the rate of £40 per year over the next 5 years. I'm surprised Sunak is able to stand. His head must be dizzy with all that spinning. One thing is certain, Iron Chancellor he ain't.